Welcome to Balkans Debrief. I'm Ilva Tare, resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center. Kosovo is at a political crossroad. The February 9th parliamentary elections have reshaped the landscape, with Prime Minister Albin Kurti Vetëvendosje losing ground and falling short of a majority. The heated campaign tells a deeper story of a shifting public sentiment, growing domestic divides, and the ever-present geopolitical tightrope Kosovo must walk. At the heart of it is a nation still struggling with its place on the international stage, facing stalled normalization talks with Serbia and strained ties with key Western allies, and indeed the complex task of forming a coalition government. So what's next? What does this election mean for Kosovo's democracy, regional stability, and international partnerships? To break it all down, I'm joined by someone who knows Kosovo's political dynamics inside and out, former U.S. Ambassador to Kosovo, Jeff Hovenier. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you to do this again.
Ambassador, you retired after 34 years from the U.S. Foreign Services, and you are fresh from your diplomatic post in Pristina in December. You wrapped up your time as the U.S. Ambassador to Kosovo, navigating, as I said, some tense moments in the relationship between Washington and Prime Minister Kurti government. Looking at the outcome from the U.S., how do you interpret the results of the February 9th elections in Pristina?
Well, I think a lot of people are asking themselves how best to understand these results. And I think just a couple of things that have come out. One is Kosovo remains a country with a broad spectrum of views of the best way forward on a key range of political issues. And, a couple of things we know. Vetëvendosje under Prime Minister Albin Kurti got, by far, the highest amount of the vote, but it didn't get enough votes to form a government on its own. But the other point I would make is the parties that had governed before Vetëvendosje still have real standing with the Kosovo public. I mean, both PDK and LDK were, PDK did a little bit better, but both in the almost 20% range, which also says that there's an awful lot of people in Kosovo who are looking to those parties for leadership and the best way forward as well. What's clear is the country's not got a unified view on some of the best approaches to how to address Kosovo's most pressing issues.
Yeah, but what do you think led to this shift, to a drop in support for Vetëvendosje and a slight increase for the opposition parties?
Well, I mean, as you know, some of that's just normal politics, right? I think it's important to remember that the 2021 parliamentary election was extraordinary. It was an aberration. Now, Kosovo's history as a political entity with elections is not that old, but in the history of the country, you'd never before had any country that got by its own more than half of the seats in the assembly. It was the very first time that any government, any party had the opportunity to govern without being in a coalition. And so what we've seen, in this next election is probably a little more normal. There's still an awful lot of people that support Vetëvendosje, but it is not half of the country. And coalition politics have been part of Kosovo for a long time. What's going to be interesting now is with this drop in Vetëvendosje's support. And again, it's important to note they still got more votes than anybody else by a ways. What will the coalition politics look like? How hard and how easy it is? In the past, people sort of expected parties to be able to come together on key issues for the good of the nation and work together. But all the signals from all the actors are some of that past behavior may not play out now.
I did mention the challenging relationship that the government, the Prime Minister Kurti had while you were ambassador of the United States to Kosovo. But do you believe that Kurti's rocky relationship with the U.S. might have played a role in the Vetëvendosje's performance in the polls?
That's hard for me to say. The polling I saw suggested that the issues that the voters cared most about weren't relations with the United States or relation with Europe or the dialogue. It was jobs. It was the economy. It was healthcare. It was education. It was creating a future where the young generation in Kosovo's, Europe's youngest country, feels like it has the opportunity to stay and live and work and be and succeed and thrive in the country with a need for reform. That seems to be what most voters told pollsters, at least, would be what was determinative for them when they chose the party that they were going to vote for.
And forming a governing coalition won't be easy from what we know. Vetëvendosje is saying that they are willing to form the government with the non-Serb minority parties, but not with the opposition parties. What kind of challenges you think does Kurti face in building the government?
In any parliamentary democracy, coalition building is a combination of political art and just sheer mathematics, right? You've got to look at the seats you have, the seats possible partners have, and the number of seats you need to form a majority. And in Kosovo, obviously, the magic number is 61. You got to have 61 votes to have a majority government in the Kosovan Assembly. I don't see, as I understand the current results, and of course, vote tabulation is still going on, but on the basis of the results we've seen, on the basis of the estimated number of seats going to parties, it looks like Vetëvendosje is going to have 47, maybe 48, somewhere in there. You know, of the 20 seats set aside for the non-majority representatives, 10 go to Serbs, 10 go to other ethnic groups. So if those numbers hold, if Vetëvendosje is in the upper 40s, and even if they manage to work with all 10 of the non-Serb minority representatives, it doesn't get you to 61.
Ambassador, do you think we can see an opposition parties coalition coming together to form their own coalition? And do you see the United States somehow being interested in one form of government or the other?
So let me start with the first part of that question. As I said, with regard to Vetëvendosje, again, coalition formation is a combination of political will and skill, but also just numbers and mathematics and how many seats you have. Again, it is possible that PDK, LDK, and AAK together with some of the non-majority representatives could probably get to 61 seats. It's a possibility. That'd be a very fragile coalition. And right now, signals are mixed. The parties came into the election trying to represent different things and trying to give different messages to the electorate. They certainly were unified in a vision, in a view of their criticisms of the current government. But whether you can pull that together to a sustainable governing coalition is an open question. And I would say that the initial indications from political actors are it's a mixed question. On the question of, does the United States have an interest? Well, I think all of Kosovo's friends have an interest in seeing a government formed, an effective government in place that can best advance the country. I can't speak for the current U.S. administration. I retired at the end of December before this administration came into power. So I can only speak to my time. During my time, we were prepared to work with whatever democratically elected, legitimate representative government there was, with the effort of trying to advance Kosovo's place. We want to see Kosovo succeed on the international stage. We want to see the economy grow, and we want to see Europe's youngest government be even more successful in delivering services to citizens.
Depending on the coalition, do you think who is going to govern Kosovo might reshape the country's policies either at home and also when it comes to its approach to Serbia?
Well, elections have consequences everywhere around the world. So yes, of course, whoever governs Kosovo and whatever personality it is in the role of prime minister, but also whatever that governing coalition is and the program it's agreed upon and the priorities it's set will direct how the government approaches things. I can only hope that the next government will focus on a couple of things with some priority.
Which are?
So domestically, you do want to see this economy grow. There's a need for economic growth and development. There's a need to attract foreign investment. There's a need to see a future of economic growth, development, and I would say integration into the region. The European Union has some very attractive offers to the region as a region. Those will benefit people of Kosovo and other countries in the region too. So I'd hope whatever the next government is will focus on those things. And that is what the voters say they want. Again, jobs, economic growth, development, healthcare, education, things like that. On the issues I spent a lot of time working on dialogue, I do think Kosovo benefits as it repositions its relationship with Serbia and as it is a current situation that is of somewhat uneasy cooperation with the European Union and the United States. I think Kosovo will benefit from a closer partnership, and I think Kosovo will benefit from getting real progress made on advancing a repositioned relationship with Serbia.
And speaking of Serbia, tensions between Pristina and Belgrade remain high. What role can Kosovo's new government play in reviving the dialogue? And do you think the implementation of the ASM will be a key condition for any negotiations and any government also?
A lot of international actors will be watching for signals from a new government of Kosovo of how it intends to approach dialogue and its relationship with Serbia, but also how it intends to approach responding to offers from the West, in particular the European Union. The new European Union leadership has, I feel like, gone out of their way to send signals to both Serbia and Kosovo of their readiness to do what they can to advance a repositioned relationship, an increased normalization of relations, a better situation for both countries. And there's some interesting and important things on offer. I think they're showing some strategic patience, and that's right, while the government of Kosovo, while the elections happen and a government is eventually formed and that government has to figure out its priorities. But there are some important offers there that are meaningful for Kosovo. And so I hope the next government will take the European Union and hopefully the United States up on offers to help. On your specific question of the Association of Serb Majority Municipalities, let me just be clear, as I've been for a long time. The Republic of Kosovo made a commitment to do this back in 2013. That commitment hasn't gone away. And that commitment stands. There are commitments that Serbia has made as well, things it needs to do that also need to be implemented. That commitment with regard to the association was reiterated strongly in the context of the 2023 Basic Agreement and its Ohrid Implementation Annex. And I personally believe, and if I were giving advice to Peter Sorensen in the European Union, I think the best way forward is not to negotiate new commitments right now, because what was achieved in 2023 is a pretty impressive package. It's just completely lacking in implementation. Neither Kosovo nor Serbia have taken seriously their obligations to implement as they need to do. So seeing that move forward would really change the dynamic, and to the benefit of Kosovo and to Serbia as well, I would say.
I know this conversation is about Kosovo's elections, the aftermath, but I cannot miss the opportunity to ask you, Ambassador, about Serbia, that itself is going through political turmoil right now with student protests. How might this situation affect talks between Kosovo and Serbia?
That is difficult for me to say. What I would say is I think the European Union is rightly watching watching government formation in Kosovo, and also watching, to what extent is the government of Serbia sending signals right now that it is ready and able and in a position to do some hard things. I know there's been conversations, including with the Serbian foreign minister, that the European Union leadership were pleased with, and commitments from Foreign Minister Đurić of commitment to seeing dialogue move forward. But the tactical, practical question of when best to engage obviously is a decision for Peter Sorensen and Kaja Kallas. My advice would be it's important to ask for hard things at a time when countries are in a position to do hard things.
And do you think they are right now?
I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, in the case of Kosovo, you don't even have, you need to get a government formed. You need to know who is in power and what their priorities are. In the case of Serbia, I don't, right now you're going to get a different prime minister, but it's not at all clear there's any changes in governance coming.
Coming back to Kosovo's relationship with its Western allies, including the United States, there are many believe that these relationships have taken a hit under Kurti's leadership. He thinks differently. He has a different view. How about your perspective? What have been the biggest points of friction, and what should Kosovo's leaders do to mend those ties?
I think some of the most difficult, so first of all, there's a lot of issues where we agree with any government of Kosovo, right? Including with the Kurti government. We agree strongly that Kosovo is a sovereign, independent, democratic, multi-ethnic state. We agree strongly that Kosovo should advance in its European trajectory, that Kosovo should move forward in the Council of Europe, the European Union, Partnership for Peace, and eventually NATO. We want to see that for the people of Kosovo. We want to see it succeed economically, as I've talked about. We want to see Europe's youngest government be even better at delivering, at being effective at governance and providing services to citizens. And so all these things are areas where we have strong agreement and worked hard together to achieve. Where we got stuck was at times on the very difficult, sensitive issue set of how best to fulfill the promises made and the vision of the country at the time of independence on the basis of our support for independence, which was as a multi-ethnic country and in which there would be some special protections for non-majority communities, particularly the Serb community, given the complicated and difficult history. So we got stuck on some of the issues of how best to implement constitutional protections for minority communities. We got stuck on the issues of how can Serbia best exercise the right it has under Ahtisaari to actually provide support for the ethnic Serb community in Kosovo, but in a manner that we agree needs to comply with Kosovan law and constitution. So it boiled down to some of these ASM issues. It boiled down to some of these institutions and the manner, not that there should be Serbian-supported state structures in Kosovo. Serbia does not have a role in the governance of Kosovo, but how do you unwind that? And how do you transition from that to something different? And what does that something different look like? I would say those are the areas where we had the most differences, not in what we wanted to see long-term, but how best to achieve it.
And there were no way to overcome the differences while you were there.
I wouldn't say that. There were times when we very much overcame differences, and there were times when we had differences that we were not able to completely bridge.
Okay, but there are some also that argue, and especially even Vetëvendosje and Kurti supporters, saying that the Western involvement in Kosovo's local politics crosses the line into interference. How do you respond to these critics who say that the international influence is undermining Kosovo's sovereignty, for which Kurti is trying hard to extend it?
I've spent a lot of my career in different jobs trying to advance Kosovo's sovereignty. And I don't have a lot of, second guessing about whether that was the right thing to do or not. I'm proud of the role I and my government have played over many years in many ways to advance Kosovo as a sovereign, independent, multi-ethnic, democratic state. And Kosovo is a sovereign state. And I don't think during my time as ambassador, we ever questioned Kosovo's sovereignty. I can't count the times I would say to the prime minister and others, these are your decisions. But being sovereign doesn't mean you get to avoid consequences when you take policy choices or actions that don't agree, that are not consistent with requests from your partners. And that's kind of the issue now is Kosovo gets to be sovereign, but it doesn't get to control how the United States or the European Union or others react, or at times even hold accountable when actions happen that we believe undercut what we're trying to achieve together. And I'll just say, a Kosovo that has had its membership application for the European Union accepted and in progress, a Kosovo that's a member of the Council of Europe, a Kosovo that is advancing towards Partnership for Peace and NATO membership, is probably a safer, more sovereign Kosovo than one that isn't.
And actually it goes to my next question, how crucial is U.S. support in Kosovo's push for EU and NATO membership? Can Pristina achieve all these goals without the support and the backing from Washington, D.C.?
There's a practical piece here. How does the European Union take decisions with regard to accession? You have to have a consensus view of all EU member states. How does NATO take decisions with regard to NATO membership? You have to have a consensus decision of all NATO states. If any one state disagrees, it doesn't move forward. So in that context, of course you need the strong support of the United States, and you need the strong support of other partners as well to achieve this. And of course, it can't happen without that support. That's not a threat. It's just a statement of fact. It's the way these institutions take decisions. And so the most important element of the diplomacy here is building support for and having a reservoir of goodwill and a track record of trust and partnership so that when it comes times for these decisions, it's fairly easily done.
Talking about U.S. support in Kosovo and across the world, in your recent op-ed titled Trump Dismantling of USAID Harms U.S. Interests and is a Gift to Our Competitors, published in the Bellingham Herald, you discuss the critical role of USAID in advancing U.S. interests abroad. Could you tell us more about the impact of USAID programs and activities in Kosovo, particularly in fostering economic development and strengthening democratic institutions?
We are really proud of what USAID has done in Kosovo. So just this last year in 2024, we had a big event to celebrate 25 years of USAID in Kosovo and what it has meant. And let me remind what happened 25 years ago. We all know it, but 25 years ago was 1999 and 2000. And the country, just emerged from this incredibly traumatic experience of ethnic cleansing and over 1 million people displaced from their homes and having to build a society with support for the international community. Well, the United States showed up, right? We showed up to provide educational support, housing support, nutritional support. We showed up together with our European partners, and we showed up mainly through USAID. So the initial response to the trauma of the Milosevic campaign of ethnic cleansing, our best programmatic work was largely USAID's work. And I think the people of Kosovo know that, and we're extremely grateful for it, and we are too. So fast forward 25 years, what have we been doing since that time? Well, 3 big priority objectives. Helping this youngest country in Europe take its place. So USAID programs have done a lot in helping with legal reform and regulatory reform and other things to help Kosovo meet the standards for European Union accession and European integration. It's a big part of the project. Economic growth. Think about what the economy was like in 1999 and 2000. Think about what the economy is like now. All this work to help create innovative hubs, to help businesses get access to financing, to help minority and women-owned businesses compete successfully. I could keep going on and on. Educational programs that help employers find people who have the skill sets they need. So this economic and energy transition, a huge part of our USAID programming, helping a country that right now is reliant on 2 dirty coal-burning Yugoslav-era plants have an energy infrastructure that's relevant to the 21st century. And then the third part, a government, right? Youngest government of the country. No functionary in the government of Kosovo has more than 17 years of experience because the government is no more than 17 years old. We'll celebrate together the 17th anniversary of Kosovo's independence next week. So a lot of work done helping municipalities be more effective, helping ministries be more effective. It has had enormous impact for the positive, for the people of Kosovo, but it's also strongly in the interest of the United States because when Kosovo succeeds, when Kosovo is a source of stability and prosperity, we're better off than when Kosovo is a source of instability or trauma or problem where we have to deploy soldiers, where we have to engage. So this has been an enormous return on investment for the American people as well as being very much to the benefit of the people of Kosovo. There's one more point I want to make on this because you can tell I feel so strongly. The other part I've struggled very much with is the people doing this work. There are hundreds of implementing partners doing important work in Kosovo, making a difference every day. There are committed U.S. Foreign Service officers and committed Kosovan citizens who work for USAID and work for the U.S. Embassy and have for years, who believe so strongly in what they do and are proud of what they do and have done amazing things to the benefit of both countries. So part of what I also have been wanting to write about and talk about is the extent to which these are loyal, apolitical, capable, dedicated public servants who are making a difference. It's hard to understand why they should be penalized, punished, or disrespected, which is how it feels.
Thank you for making your point very clear. Ambassador Hovenier, will you miss Kosovo, first of all? And if yes, what exactly will you be missing more?
My career, I have had elements of Kosovo so frequently in my foreign service career over a variety of years. I don't know that I will ever be completely detached from this project. I care. I first encountered Kosovo in 1999, and it's hard to disassociate feelings in 2025 from that formative experience. So it was time for me to retire and to go on to some other things. But I hope to still be involved in some way, shape, or form in helping the people of Kosovo continue to advance on their trajectory. And I know that in my lifetime, I'll be able to shake hands with my Kosovan friends and congratulate them on being members of the European Union and being members of NATO, for example. I look forward to that day.
Thank you so much. And even talking to Balkans Debrief is part of that help that and being engaged with the region and caring for it. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Thank you for this opportunity.